you have spent a fair bit of time reporting on what I have begun calling, as of this morning, Hitler's hobos, the encampments against Israel, which, I mean, it's really not against Israel. These are anti-Semitic protests. Yours was at the University of Ottawa that you went to visit. And, you know, they say these are about divestment of the state of Israel, but then why are they harassing Jewish students and protesters as they walk across the lawns there? Tell me about, like, you've gone there, I think, now twice. We've got a follow-up report. We're recording this on Tuesday. It might be out today. It could be out tomorrow. But tell me about your first assessment of the lay of the land of Hitler's hobos.
The most noteworthy takeaway is the unwillingness of protesters to speak, or even more fundamentally, their obedience to their handlers, their masters. There are these protest organizers, let's call them. That's a charitable term. They are professional agitators. They're obviously not students. You can tell by the way they look, their age, their background. They don't speak English very well in some cases. And they're also known quantities to people that I've come to know who pay attention to these things in Ottawa. So the handlers, again, not students, middle-aged people, are advising everyone, or let's put it this way, directing anyone who I may approach and solicit for comment or an interview, don't speak to that guy. He's a right-wing chud. That was a quote that was directed towards me. And in 99% of cases, these student protesters who, again, I'm assuming are protesters based on their ages, they're on the young side, 18, 19, 20. They may have knapsacks on. There's sort of evidence that they are students. They immediately obey. They immediately act subservient to this master or these masters. And that's really sad. That's sort of emblematic, I think, of this philosophical approach that people on that side of the aisle, so to speak, tend to have relative to us. They're much more herd mentality, much more compliant, much more conciliatory. And that was the worst part of it, because I'm approaching these folks in good faith. Even if I don't agree with them on this or that issue, I do want them to express their points of view and have that shared with the audience, because the rationale behind people's attendance at these massive protests is newsworthy. Yet, again, when they're told not to speak with me, they just shut down and don't talk. It's very slave-like and pathetic.
Yeah, and I wonder, you know, before I move on, I just want to say that's very evident in your video. You are calm. You're being completely upfront with the people. You're not saying, like, I'm here to catch you in, you know, a trick question. You tell them, like, look, I may not share your viewpoint, but I want to have a civil discussion with you. I want to know why you're here. I think one of the reasons they don't want them talking to you is they don't even know why they're there, that they have such a shallow grasp of the issue that even the most basic level question from you would reveal that to the world.
Yeah, I suspect that to be true. It's clearly based on insecurity, an unwillingness to talk, or at least a fear of demonstrators talking to media on the part of these organizers, these taskmasters, these handlers, is obviously a reflection of insecurity. They're not confident that they're able to win in the battlefield of ideas. They don't think that the attendees at these demonstrations can elucidate or articulate positions that are persuasive or convincing. So it just shows a lack of confidence, at least on the part of the taskmasters, but even to one degree or another, the fact that 99% of these demonstrators don't have the wherewithal or guts just to say, you know what, I want to talk to this guy, shows that they don't have confidence either in themselves, and they're obedient, compliant, subservient to these people that they don't even know, just because they've got this sort of self-induced aura of authority.
Yeah, that's a great point. Not only do they likely not have a very strong grasp of the geopolitical issues at play here, but they are also cowards, which you know, is a recipe for disaster, for a public relations disaster. So I guess that's why their handlers come down so strong on them. I mean, you see how little they really truly understand the issue of what's happening between Israel and Hamas in Gaza when they say stuff like, stop the occupation now.
Right.
Israel hasn't been in Gaza for years. There's not even a dead Jew. unless you're counting hostages. I mean, they dug up the cemeteries when they withdrew from Gaza. Instead of leaving they literally left nobody behind. There is no occupation there. But you see these protesters saying, stop the occupation now. It's really quite bizarre. I mean, but there are questions that I want answers to, and I think the world wants answers to. Like, for example, who is paying for all these matching tents and matching professionally printed signage?
Right.
And I don't think they want that question asked.
There's no doubt there's a degree of central planning in multinational sense, because you're seeing the same strategy, the same type of protest, not just in Canada, but across the English-speaking world. Let me share with you in the audience one more phenomenon, one more thing that occurred. So the last time I was there was sometime last week. I think it might have been Saturday. It was very hostile. So immediately upon my arrival, I'm recognized by one of the handlers that recognized me the first time, which is a few days prior. And he starts aggregating these other people who I assume are also organizers. A lot of them are middle-aged people. Some of them are middle-aged Arabs. They're clearly not students. And the entire time I was there, no exaggeration, I had this entourage of maybe 10 people following me around within 3, 4, 5 feet of me, never creating any more distance than that. To any person I may approach and solicit for an interview, I probably approached 20 people, 25 people, and except for one, and even that one person himself took a moment to sort of verify what Rebel News is, to see if I'm worth speaking to. He was, let's say, 51% compliant with the directives issued to him by these handlers not to speak with me. And the exchange that I had with him was very superficial. So again, I've got these people around me the entire time, banging on drums quite close to me, blowing into this, megaphone, chanting,
yep,
free Palestine. And they're doing everything they can to disrupt the attention, the cognition of both me and anyone I may be approaching for an interview. There's clearly an aspect of intimidation. Now, to be fair, I mean, the people that they're intimidating are 18, 19, 20-year-old kids.
Yeah.
I'm a 41-year-old grown man. I don't get intimidated by this kind of thing. But that vibe puts people off, and obviously was effective in shutting down anyone's maybe willingness in a different circumstance to speak with me. And also there's this attempt to disrupt the quality of the interview. So even if a person was open to speaking with me, and again, essentially nobody was, there's a high risk that the quality of the audio would be destroyed by that loud mob. So they're doing everything they can in a very obnoxious, pathetic, juvenile, aggressive, intimidating way to prevent any sort of open communication between media figures and protest participants.
Although I don't think it is all media figures. I think it is skeptical media
That's
figures.
Right.
Because they're more than happy to talk to CBC or the mainstream media, because they know that those outlets are going to be sympathetic to their nonsense.
That's right.
And also not ask a single tough question like, how come you guys all have matching tents? What's going on there? How come you all have these professionally printed signs? Who's paying for those? Could it be IRGC-backed proxies, maybe? They're not asking any of those questions, so they're happy to give those interviews to the national Trudeau sycophant media.
Yeah, even at one point, about 3 minutes after I arrived, one of the handlers who was informed of my presence, Rebel News is here, really dangerous, goes over to this lady at this sort of de facto dais. It's like this elevated stone. It's a sort of makeshift platform that speakers get on top of, speakers meaning human beings, but they speak through speakers also, the electronic versions, and they have the ability to sort of broadcast loud volume messaging to the entire demonstration. It's got the reach to the edge of the courtyard. And again, minutes after my arrival, this lady gets up there. She looks like a student to me, and she says, "Guys," I'm paraphrasing, "don't speak with anyone from the media. If anyone asks you for an interview, do not talk to them. Direct them to the media liaison." I'm not even sure that person even exists, because there was no attempt to do that at all. So there was this obsession with me while I was there 15 minutes. And again, it's just really pathetic and juvenile. And I think people should not be afraid to be incorrect. And I think people should express their points of view. That's how we sharpen each other's understandings of the world, when we sort of have these back and forth exchanges. I'm a believer in dialogue. Maybe I'm naive, maybe I'm idealistic, but I think that's the way to go.